Hey guys, it's Bella. Welcome back to another Mystery Monday. I hope you guys all had an amazing weekend, and if you're new here, welcome. We talk about true crime cases on this channel on Mondays, so if that's something that you're interested in, please come and join us and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. So today we're going to be talking about the Caldwell triple homicide. This is a crazy case, you guys. I know I say that about all of them, but it really is crazy. It takes place in Boise, Idaho in 2017 when three bodies were discovered on a farmhouse in Caldwell, and what investigators uncovered after this discovery shocked everybody. Before we do get into the case, I just quickly want to thank our sponsor Saley. Saley is my go-to for an eSIM. Seriously, if you guys ever need an eSIM, you need to check out Saley. They just make the process so easy. I use eSIMs all the time with all of the travel that I've been lucky enough to do over the last couple of years, and honestly, all I do every time I go to a new country is I just have to go onto the Saley app, select the plan that I want, and that's it. It takes seconds. They make it so easy. It takes so much of the stress off traveling, because when you're traveling, there's just so many little bits and bobs that you have to think about. So the fact that I just go on this app, it takes 5 seconds and I don't have to worry about having no data is a lifesaver. I feel like you really take data for granted when you have it, and you don't realize how much you need it when you don't have it. Traveling is stressful enough without getting to a country and not being able to pull up your bookings, not being able to pull up the maps or the address of where you're going to, or simply being able to get from place to place because you can't put a location in your map because you need data for that. But Saley has plans for over 200 countries. They are compatible with iOS and Android devices, and if you download it and find that for whatever reason your phone is not eSIM compatible, then they will give you a full refund. So make sure you guys check them out. You just have to download the app, and then you can use the code BellaFiore at checkout for 15% off your first purchase of a Saley eSIM data plan. I believe all of the information in the description down below, so make sure you check that out, and let's go ahead and get into today's case. So Nadia Medley was born in Germany on the 5th of December 1969. She moved to the US all by herself while her mom and her family stayed back in Germany, and she made a life for herself in Utah, where she met a man named Todd Medley. They worked in a pet store together, they both loved animals, they loved camping, and they started dating and eventually got married. In 2002, they had a child together, a daughter named Peyton, and then 9 years later in 2011, they had another child together, but unfortunately, this child passed away very shortly after Nadia gave birth. And this was a really, really hard thing for Nadia to deal with. She was devastated by this loss, and while she was still dealing with the grief of that and recovering from that loss, 3 years later in 2014, her husband Todd passed away as well from a heart attack. She actually later revealed in a Facebook post that this relationship was not so great behind the scenes, and that Todd was physically abusive to her throughout their relationship. And in the same Facebook post, she also revealed that her stepfather had been sexually abusing her as a child. So this Facebook post read, "So I hear it's National Coming Out Day. If you haven't figured out I'm an atheist, I'm not sure I can help you. But I am also a survivor of sexual abuse by my stepdad and of spousal abuse, both mental and physical, by my late husband. Sorry if that burst anyone's bubble, and I'm much better off now and definitely a survivor. And let me tell you, real people don't hurt others." Now, despite all of the friends that she had made while living in Utah, and despite their problematic relationship, Todd's passing was a really, really hard time for her because he hadn't been working at the time that he passed, so he left her nothing. She was left with no money, and she was now a single mum struggling to make ends meet for herself and her daughter. All of her family was back in Germany, and all of her in-laws lived interstate, so it was just her and Peyton in Utah kind of navigating this really difficult time together. Peyton was 12 years old by this point, and they were the only family that each other had, so it really brought them closer together, and they really just bonded and became best friends. One of Peyton's friends said, quote, "They were super close. They were friends just as much as mother and daughter. They both loved animals. They loved going for picnics together. They had a bunch of animals too. They had dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, goats, chicken, fish, birds. They even had a snake. One of their friends said, you name it, they probably have that animal." I mean, obviously they both really loved animals, and so that was something that they really bonded over. Peyton was said to be a really, really sweet girl. One of her friends said, quote, "Peyton was the most kind-hearted girl that I've ever met. She was so sweet. She wore her heart on her sleeve. She had the brightest smile. She lit up anybody's day." She was also a really bright girl. She was very intelligent, especially when it came to writing. And one of Nadia's friends, Christine, said, quote, "She was the kind of young girl that you look to and say, that is the future." When Peyton had 2 of her stories published in her school literary publication, Nadia was so incredibly proud of her. And she posted on her Facebook and said, quote, "Hello friends, this is a post about my amazing daughter, Peyton Medley. I want you all to know that she's a very sensitive, creative, loving, and compassionate person. She's experienced a lot of adversity and negativity in her life, but despite this, she's still very positive and full of aspirations. Currently, she's one of the youngest students to get published in her school's literary publication, and not once, but twice. By far the youngest in her advanced literature class, she received great encouragement from her teacher due to her freedom of expression, creativity, and composition. Besides this, she's also founded her own YouTube channel, Peyton Tiger. The whole point of this post is not to brag, but to let you know she's doing good. She can always use more encouragement, but the last thing we want to do is stifle her expression. It's taken long enough for her to be able to put herself out there and be noticed. Please help, don't hinder." And as she said in that post, Peyton had also made a YouTube channel where she would tell stories, she would do challenges, she would vlog, and Nadia was her biggest supporter and even went on the channel with her and let Peyton do her makeup. So they were navigating this weird time together, and Nadia was really just trying to find her footing as a single mum and trying to make ends meet. She got a job as a massage therapist at a med spa in Ogden, Utah. Her friend Michelle said, quote, "Nadia was a massage therapist. She was also into healing things. I know that she sold kombucha. She was very earthy." And I think this is one of the things that made this whole situation and this whole time so much weirder for Nadia, is that one of the things she loved about Utah is the fact that she loved being grounded with the earth. She loved nature. She loved the outdoors. And Utah is obviously a very, very beautiful place. The outdoors there are so beautiful. But she was also an atheist. She was very open about this. She posted about it on Facebook a lot. And Utah is a very, very religious place. I mean, from my research, I believe it's actually the highest, or the state with the highest number of religious occupants in the US. So I think it was just a weird contrast for her. And sometimes, despite having close friends, I think it could make her feel isolated and like she didn't belong. She actually posted a status on Facebook that read, quote, "So living in Utah is weird. Everyone is religious AF." Anyway, these sort of contrasting feelings that she had of loving the outdoors, but being an atheist and feeling kind of, weird about it, kind of helped her with her future relationship. So while she was at work, she actually met a man who was in his 50s. He came in for a massage. He had an appointment with Nadia, and he was just charming. He had a great presence about him. He had a great personality. Nadia really wasn't looking for a relationship at all after losing her husband, after, she was just trying to get through things and kind of find her bearings. But when this guy walked in, she was just instantly attracted to him. And then as they got talking, she found out that he was also an atheist. They had really similar values. They both loved the outdoors. They loved camping. They loved hiking. They both loved just being in nature. His name was Bullinger, and he really seemed to have his life together. He worked as a private pilot for clients, so he was flying all around the country for work, and he also happened to be single. He'd been divorced for 10 years by this point, and so one thing led to another, and they started dating. He went out of his way to make not only Nadia feel special, but her daughter Peyton as well. He would take them both out to dinner, to the rodeo, to concerts, on hikes. They would go on camping trips to Yellowstone together. He would also go and pick Peyton up from school, and he would take her out to lunch. He taught her how to shoot, and there's videos of them on Facebook just mucking about with each other, and it's really sweet. That sounds so wrong. Yeah. Peyton loved him just as much as Nadia did, and she actually went on to even start calling him dad. On Father's Day, Nadia posted a photo of Mike and Peyton on Facebook, and she captioned it, "Happy Father's Day to all the real dads out there, those who inspire those kids, who are there for their families, who take the time to make a difference." She posted about him on Facebook a lot. She loved to show off her relationship. She was just so happy with Mike, and she posted a photo on Facebook which read, "Behind a lot of great kids is a step parent who stepped up, stepped in, and gave a shit." Nadia's friends were so excited for her. One of her closest friends, Rebecca, said, quote, Nadia had gone through a really rough time. She was pretty down up until she met Mike. She also said, quote, she was in love. She was so happy. She was smiling all the time. Mike really got Nadia to turn all the sorrow around. She became this happy person and he just took really good care of her. He would take her out. He would take her to dinner. He would take them hiking. Peyton was very close with Mike. He took great care of her too. He was protective over Peyton. He loved her. Another one of Nadia's friends, Michelle, said, quote, he just made her feel great. He made her feel beautiful. He made her feel happy. He made her feel loved and he spoiled her. Every time I turn around, there's another picture on Facebook about a rodeo or a concert or a hike. After she met Mike, you just saw that living spark coming back to her. After they'd been dating for over a year, things were going super well, but they came to a bit of a bump in the road when Nadia actually saw one of his paychecks. So just for that month, he had earned $10,000. And so she was, a single mom struggling to pay her mortgage. And she decided to ask a couple of times if he could actually help her out with paying her mortgage. And this really didn't go down well. He hadn't been in a relationship for 10 years. So he felt like getting financially involved with somebody was it was moving too quickly. It was too soon. So they broke up and he also moved away to Boise, Idaho, and he bought a 1.5 acre ranch there in a place called Caldwell, which is about 30 minutes west of Boise. He and Nadia were in constant contact during this time and, they say distance makes the heart grow fonder. They actually ended up getting back together and he wanted Nadia to know that he was really serious this time, that he wasn't afraid of commitment. And so he invited Nadia and Peyton to come and live with him at this ranch that he had purchased in Caldwell. He said that they could do it up together. He said that, there was lots of open fields for horses, for all of their dogs and rabbits and all of their other animals that they had. Nadia texts one of her friends and she says, he told me separating wasn't making him feel any better. We have a really hard time being apart at this point. She was so excited about this whole, them getting back together, him asking her and Peyton to move in with him. And so she posted about it all on Facebook. She said, quote, okay, folks, I have some news. Mike asked Peyton and myself to move to Boise with him once his new job is stable and he's settled in a bit. It's not an immediate thing, but we're working on getting the house in order and things settled. She also posted and said, quote, hi kids, long time no see. Don't get used to it though. This is just a really quick visit to let y'all know that we're moving. That's right, a new home has been found and Mike, Peyton Medley and I are moving in together. Boise, here we come. I'll keep my account active for a little while so I can see who still cares and answer any questions, comments you have. And let it be known, even though I'm not really on Facebook anymore, I love you and miss you all too. So in May of 2017, Nadia and Peyton packed their lives up and they moved out to the ranch in Caldwell with all of their animals in tow. And as soon as they arrived at this ranch, Nadia was in love immediately because it was really a nature lover's dream with all of the wildflowers and the trees and all of the open spaces and fields for them and all of their animals.
It's my new backyard. Kind of liking this just a little bit. Still a little bit of fence to build here. Dogs are the only thing that's grazing now, but that will change. This is where the chickens live. Hay shed. Can't even see the house because of all the trees. Yeah, baby. We're loving it.
And she was also really excited to have this security in her relationship with Mike and be able to live now with her two best friends. Nadia was so excited that she started spending most of her time decorating the property. And one of Peyton's friends said, quote, Nadia was very excited. She threw herself into the work they were doing at the house, putting up fences, building pens, coops, rabbit runs. She was leaving all of the pain, all of the stress that she had in Utah. It was all so perfect that it felt too good to be true. And that's probably because it was. On the 9th of June 2017, while Mike was away for work, Nadia was meant to go to Utah to pick up some horses that he had purchased for the ranch, but she never showed up. When the seller tried to call her and contact her, Nadia never answered any of their calls and she never called them back. She stopped posting on Facebook. She stopped responding to messages from her friends and family. Mike's friends and family also stopped hearing from him as well. And Peyton was also radio silent. The last time her best friend Bethany had heard from her was on the 8th of June, and they spoke every single day. So Bethany was really concerned. She even went as far as to message Peyton's mum to ask if everything was okay. But of course, Nadia never responded either. Another one of Peyton's close friends, a girl named Sydney, hadn't heard from Peyton since the 6th of June, and they spoke really often. So as time went on and she didn't hear from Peyton and Peyton wasn't responding to any of her messages, she just got more and more worried until eventually her mum called the Canyon County Sheriff in Idaho and asked them to go and do a welfare check.
I haven't heard from her for about 10 days. She's really good at responding to texts.
Deputies from the Sheriff's Department arrived at the Caldwell Ranch on the 19th of June 2017, and as soon as they arrived on the ranch, they were hit with a really awful smell, the kind of smell that told them something very bad had happened there. As they made their way further onto the property, the deputy noticed that the smell seemed to get worse the closer they got to the shed, and there was also an insane amount of flies swarming that shed. When he entered, he found a blue tarp on the floor, and underneath that tarp, he found 3 dead bodies, all of which had been shot once in the head, execution style. It appeared that they had been dead for at least 1 to 2 weeks, and because this was the middle of summer and it was July, it was really hot, and the heat was kind of worse in this enclosed shed, they had already decomposed beyond the point of recognition. But it was believed that the 3 bodies belonged to the 3 people that lived on the property: 47-year-old Nadia, 14-year-old Peyton, and 60-year-old Mike. If you're sensitive to anything to do with animals, then please skip forward 30 seconds. I'll also put a timestamp on the screen. But at the property, the deputies also found multiple dead animals. Their 3 dogs were also found in that shed, having been shot execution style as well. Several other birds, cats, and chickens were also found to have died from starvation on the property. It took 2 weeks for the bodies to be positively identified through dental records, but when they were positively identified as that of Nadia Medley and Peyton Medley. But the 3rd body was not actually the body of Mike Bullinger. It was that of 56-year-old Cheryl Baker. Cheryl Baker was born on the 6th of September 1960 in Detroit, Michigan. Eventually in 1984, after graduating from college, she moved to Ogden, Utah, where she worked at Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind for 32 years, teaching children with hearing impairments. The superintendent of that school said, quote, "She impacted many, many students. She was especially devoted to her students. She went above and beyond. She gave away supplies and clothes to kids in need, and she was always looking for grants and got several for her classroom over the years." Her friend Nancy said, "Cheryl was a compassionate person, and it showed in everything she did. I think a good example of this is the career she chose." Cheryl was the president of the school's teacher association for a few years, and she would often come in and crochet in her meetings, and some of the other faculty said that they had really fond memories of just judging how long a meeting was by how many scarves she had finished. Superintendent Tanner said of Cheryl, quote, "She was an avid reader. She loved the outdoors. She was very creative, artistic, kind, gentle woman." So she met her first and only husband when she was in her 50s. She was actually on a flight from Alaska back to Utah, and she was sat next to this guy who was also in his 50s, and they just got along so well. They had so much in common. They both loved the outdoors, they loved camping, they loved hiking, they loved traveling, and they just spoke for the entire flight. And so by the end of it, they exchanged numbers, one thing led to another, and they started dating. They would go camping together, hiking together, horseback riding together. Cheryl also practiced Hinduism, and she would attend the Sri Ganesha temple in Utah. And although Gerald was a member of the LDS or Mormon church, he fully embraced Hinduism. He started attending the temple with her, and he even learnt Sanskrit, which is what the Hindu scriptures are written in. Although they obviously had a lot in common, Cheryl's friends actually described it as more of sort of an opposites attract sort of situation. Gerald loved motorcycles. He was an avid motorbike rider. He was a skilled outdoorsman, and he actually ran these tour groups where he would take small groups out hunting. And so when he would come home and he would get all of his guns out for after these trips and start cleaning them, Cheryl would have to leave the room. She hated guns. She was part of a meditation group. She was more of an artsy meditation kind of woman rather than a motorbike hunting gun type of woman, you know? So in 2010, they got married, and Cheryl actually made her own wedding dress because she was a very skilled, artistic woman. She was very creative. And after nearly 4 decades working at Utah's School for the Deaf and for the Blind, she actually left that school and went on to work at Greenwood Charter School as an art teacher, which all of her friends thought was so fitting for her. Her friend Nancy said after the wedding, quote, "When she married Gerald, all of us, all our close friends, were so struck by how she seemed so content with her life and happy. We were just so happy for her." So she had a house in Ogden, Utah, which is where her and Gerald were living. But in May of 2017, she decided to borrow against that house and purchase a ranch in Caldwell, Idaho. Gerald couldn't actually get the financing to help with this purchase, so Cheryl bought it all on her own, in her own name, and she bought it as sort of a retirement home for them. So they were really excited to just settle down, to sell the home in Ogden, to move out to this ranch in Caldwell together, and just spend the rest of their days doing it up and in each other's company and in this peaceful environment on this large property. It was over 1.5 acres. There was a large shed on the property as well, which Cheryl planned to turn into her very own art studio. She worked her final day at the school on the 6th of June 2017, and that was her last day of work. She was retired. She was so excited about the next phase in her life, but unfortunately, she would never get to experience it. Now, you may be wondering how this is all connected, what her connection is to Nadia and Peyton, that she was found dead alongside them at their Caldwell ranch. Well, Cheryl's husband's full name was Gerald Michael Bullinger, but he commonly went by Mike. 5 years into Mike's marriage with Cheryl, he met Nadia and he started leading a double life with both women. So Gerald, or Mike Bullinger, was born in Wyoming in 1957. His family was Mormon, so that's how he was raised. And in 1976, when he was 19, he traveled to Manila in the Philippines for his mission, which is basically where young members of the Mormon church devote 1.5 to 2 years to going and spreading the word of the church, community service, and humanitarian efforts all around the world. When he got back in 1978, he went on to attend Brigham Young University in Idaho, which is a Mormon university. Have you guys ever seen those TikToks that are like asking kids and students at BYU questions? Yeah, that is that university. Just thought that was interesting. So when he was a freshman at this university, he met another student who was also a freshman named Jackie Garcia, and they started dating and they soon got married at the Salt Lake LDS temple. But Jackie said, quote, "I knew it was a mistake as soon as I got home from the honeymoon." She recalled a time in their first year of marriage where she was lying on the floor and he was kind of looming above her, and she looked him in the face and she said, "You wanted to hit me, didn't you?" And he simply responded, "Yes." Less than a year later, he began physically abusing her, manipulating her, lying to her, and cheating on her constantly. Jackie said he was, quote, "just a dishonest person, that you could catch him red-handed, God could be pointing at him, and he'd still lie all over the place." She also said, "He would hit me once and then I would quit talking. I don't remember what the arguments were about. He just wanted to be the boss." They went on to have 2 children together, and over the next 10 years of their marriage, she did everything that she could to try and make it work. She went to couples counseling, she called a domestic violence hotline, she even told his parents about the abuse at one point, she sent Mike to therapy for batterers, but nothing worked and nobody believed her. She even went to the president of their LDS church in Montana and told him about the abuse, and this guy had known Mike since he was just a little kid, and he just did not believe that Mike was capable of something like that. Jackie was scared for her life. She actually feared that he would kill her. And so eventually, after 10 years of marriage, a member of their church granted her a divorce in 1988. After they divorced, her youngest son came home from visiting Mike and told her that Mike had hit him. Jackie said, quote, "I had sole custody and called Mike and told him that he was not allowed, that he could not hit the boys to discipline them. He didn't agree or disagree, he just took it in. The next time the boys came home after being with Mike, they told me their dad had sat them down and said that whatever happened at his house was to stay at his house, that it wasn't my business." It wasn't long after the divorce that he got remarried to one of the women that he had been cheating on Jackie with. And then that relationship also ended because of infidelity again, because he met Cheryl on that flight from Alaska back to Utah. They started dating, his wife found out about it, and Cheryl had no idea about his second wife. And then he gets married to Cheryl and goes on to cheat on her as well 5 years into their marriage. In 2015, he meets Nadia Medley and he starts leading a double life with both women. So he's attending the Hindu church with Cheryl, and then he's telling Nadia that he's totally an atheist and they share all of the same views. Jackie explained by saying, quote, he compartmentalized. He was whatever way somebody needed him to be. So he would tell both of these women, all of these women, whatever they needed to hear to be their Prince Charming. And he was Prince Charming to both of these women. He made both of them feel so special and so seen, and he took them to do all of the things that he knew that they liked. He would take them both hiking, camping, horseback riding. He would take Nadia to the rodeo and to these concerts that he knew that she loved. And even that extended to Nadia's daughter. You know, he treated Peyton like she was his own daughter. He knew exactly what he needed to do to make these women feel loved and feel special. Friends and family of both Nadia and Cheryl said there was no way either woman knew that they were being played, knew that there was another woman in Mike's life. Cheryl's friends and family said that Cheryl had no idea he was being unfaithful. Even they were blindsided by it. They had never seen any signs that he was pulling away from Cheryl, and they remember him as such a supportive husband. Someone who always took the time to go and visit his in-laws on holidays and who would always take the family on outdoor trips. Friends and family of Nadia said the exact same thing, and Nadia's friend Christine said, quote, she had great morals and she would never have been that close to Mike if she knew that he was married. Nadia's brother-in-law, Mark Medley, also said, quote, I know for a fact they didn't know Cheryl Baker. Nadia was not aware that Mike was married. In fact, when the news actually broke that the 3 bodies had been discovered and it was reported that Mike was married to Cheryl Baker, one of Nadia's friends actually contacted the news outlet and said, quote, I think you've got it wrong. He wasn't married. Nadia had confided in friends that she thought it was a little strange that he had never stayed over at her house and she had only been to his house once before. But Nadia and her friends just chalked this up to the fact that this was his first relationship in 10 years. So, you know, maybe he just wanted to take it slow, or maybe he didn't think it was appropriate because Nadia had a young daughter. No one ever suspected that he was anything but faithful. What's crazy as well is that Nadia was posting him all over Facebook, right? Like, she was so excited to show him off, to show this man that is treating her so well, treating her daughter so well. And so she is constantly posting Facebook photos of him with his name in it. Like, he doesn't have Facebook. He doesn't really use Facebook, and nor does Cheryl either. It didn't seem like she had a Facebook page. Didn't seem like Mike had a Facebook page. Nadia would tag everyone, like she would tag her friends, she would tag Peyton, but Mike never got a tag. He was just Mike, so I don't think he had a Facebook account. But she was posting him all the time, so the relationship is no secret. And what's crazy to me is that there was never a friend of a friend, a mutual acquaintance, a friend of a relative that saw Nadia's posts on Facebook and told Cheryl about them, because they lived in the same town. In fact, they only lived 8 miles or 13 kilometers away from each other. It's insane. And also, what on earth was Mike thinking moving Peyton and Nadia out to the Caldwell Ranch, which, by the way, wasn't even in his name at all, which is also confusing to me because Nadia had seen that paycheck that showed that he earned $10,000 a month. I don't know if he had set that up. There's really no explanation for that. You would think earning $10,000 a month that he would be able to go halves on this purchase with Cheryl, but he couldn't get the financing. So this ranch was fully 100% purchased by Cheryl. It is in her name only. And on the day that purchase went through, her purchase of the ranch went through is the exact day that he moved Peyton and Nadia out to the ranch. He told Cheryl that he was going to go and live in a trailer on the ranch property and start fixing it up while she stayed in Ogden to sell her home in Ogden. I honestly don't know what he thought was going to happen when she sold the home and when she came up to the house in Caldwell and he had his girlfriend and her daughter living with him. It's just so bizarre. So after Cheryl finishes her last day of work on the 6th of June 2017 and she retires, she thinks, well, I have a lot of time on my hands, so let me go and surprise my wonderful husband who is staying on the property and he's getting it all done up for us. Let me go and visit him and surprise him, because she actually hadn't seen the house herself yet. So she was also excited to not only surprise him, but see this house that she had purchased in her own name for the first time. So 2 days later, on the 8th of June in 2017, which is also the last time anybody ever heard from Peyton or Nadia, Cheryl makes the 5-hour drive from Ogden to Caldwell in Idaho. Now, we have no idea what happened when she arrived at the property, but it's safe to assume that she arrived and she was very confused when she saw all of the animals running around and the chicken coop and the rabbit runs and a fully functioning home with a car in the driveway. Maybe she saw it and thought, that he had spent this time fixing it all up and getting this all ready to surprise her. But when she went to the door and was greeted by Nadia and Peyton, she realized that that wasn't the case. Detectives theorized that they kind of got to talking while Mike was out at work, and they realized that he had been playing them both. And that's when officers believed that Mike got home and discovered that the two women had found out about each other, that his secret life had been unraveled, and he murdered all 3 women in cold blood. There are different theories about how this all may have gone down and how this actually happened, because all 3 women were murdered with a precise bullet wound to the head, execution style. So whether he came home, they confronted him, and then he shot them all one by one, there is speculation about how he could have done this without there being a struggle. Some speculate that he was already at home with Nadia and Peyton when he saw Cheryl's car arrive, and knowing that his whole secret life was about to unravel, he murdered both Peyton and Nadia before they could find out. We'll never really know how or why this tragedy occurred. One investigator said, "What happened between Mr. Bullinger and his wife, Cheryl, and Nadia? Was there a what the heck are you doing here?" Only Mr. Bullinger at this point knows what actually took place there. You had this catalyst that happened, this cataclysmic event that all of a sudden these people found out about each other. Then there was panic, rage, fury, whatever that emotion that triggered him to pull the trigger. It was then that cascading effect. Once you've killed someone, there's no way back. Authorities estimate that the murders took place on the 8th or 9th of June, as the 8th of June is the last time anybody ever heard from Nadia or Peyton, and it was also the exact same day that Cheryl drove down to the Caldwell Ranch. So by the time the bodies were discovered on the 19th of June, Mike was long gone, and he also had a 10-day head start on authorities before anyone was even looking for him. So as investigators began their search, they were able to put together a timeline of his movements in the days following the murders. On the morning of Saturday, the 10th of June, he drove to the neighboring town of Nampa, which is about 10 kilometers or 16 miles southwest of Caldwell, where he casually had breakfast. He then drove all the way to Ogden, Utah, and picked up Cheryl's car. It was a 2007 Ford Focus, and he picked it up from the dealership where it was being serviced, and he began driving that instead of his own pickup truck, maybe in an effort to throw authorities off his trail. And then on the 11th of June, he's seen on surveillance footage entering the Bridger-Teton National Forest in Wyoming, which is the last place authorities were able to trace him to. On this same day, the 11th of June, one of Cheryl's friends received a text message from her which read, "Take care of my dogs, I don't know if I'm coming back." Honestly, when her friend got this text, she didn't really think too much about it. She thought that Cheryl and Mike had just decided to go on a backpacking trip, which is something that they often did together. For obvious reasons, it's theorized that Mike actually sent this message, but it's very confusing to me because, again, please skip forward 30 seconds, I'll put a timestamp on the screen. But I just don't know why he would bother making sure Cheryl's dog or his dog with Cheryl is being cared for when he just shot 3 dogs in cold blood, execution style. After doing something like that, I just don't see him going out of his way to make sure that her dog is cared for. I mean, maybe he did it to throw her friends or throw authorities off his trail, but I also don't understand why he then wouldn't do that with Nadia and Peyton. They had friends messaging them left, right, and center, and he didn't send any messages from their phones. I mean, maybe he didn't know their passcodes, but he did know Cheryl's passcode. I don't know. It's all so strange and so confusing. The only person that would have answers to any of these questions is Mike, and he has never been seen, never been heard from since that last time he was seen entering the national park on the 11th of June. On Wednesday, the 12th of July, the car that Mike had known to been driving when he entered the national park, Cheryl's 2007 Ford Focus, was found parked at the Pacific Creek campground, which is a pretty remote campground, but Mike was nowhere to be found. Authorities searched the area with police dogs, with helicopters, with infrared technology, but no trace of Mike has ever been found to this day. On the 20th of June, authorities received a tip from some workers from the recreational center of Bridger-Teton National Park, and they said that they had seen a man that looked just like Mike in a tent less than 2 hours from where his car was found, but this tip has never been verified. Another tip came in on the 28th of June from someone saying they had seen him driving south on Interstate 15 near Salt Lake City. And there were also more possible sightings of him in Pocatello, Idaho. None of these sightings have ever been confirmed. There are so many theories about what could have happened to him, that he managed to hitchhike out of the park and he's just out living his life, that he went into the park to end his own life, or that he went into the park to try and camp out and hide out from the authorities, but eventually succumb to the elements, especially come winter time, or that he was eaten by a grizzly bear or a wolf or a coyote or some other type of animal that was in the park. Some people theorize that he may have even manipulated another woman into taking him in, or that he used his pilot's license to be able to fly out of the country, which they've never been able to verify that may have happened. Maybe also being a private pilot, he had the connections to be able to start a new life and get new identification and get out of the country. A lot of people don't actually believe that he would have ended his own life. They think that if he was going to do that, he probably would have done it in the heat of the moment, directly after committing the triple murders, instead of fleeing and going on the run. Those who knew Mike have described him as selfish and sociopathic, and one of Nadia's friends, Christine, said, quote, "People have said he probably went out into the woods and shot himself. I think he's too egotistical for that." Another one of Nadia's friends, who has chosen to remain anonymous, said, quote, "If you know about sociopaths, you know they're unlikely to kill themselves. He would have had to feel guilty, and he doesn't have a conscience." One sheriff actually said that they had found evidence to suggest that Mike had died in the national park, but also said that they can't be closed-minded in the investigation, and the evidence to say that he had died in the national park has never been released. The Canyon County sheriff also said, quote, "I believe he's dead, either from taking his own life or dying from exposure to the elements. That said, we will not stop our investigation until we can locate him or positively identify his remains. We owe that to the families of the victims and the family of Mr. Bullinger so they can finally have some sense of closure in this case." Family and friends of each of the victims were left devastated by this crime. Nadia's brother-in-law, Mark Medley, said that he had just started to build a relationship with his niece, that they had gone to visit him 2 years prior because he lived interstate in Albuquerque, and ever since they had been keeping in contact and getting closer and forming a relationship on the phone and via email. He said, quote, "It felt like Peyton and I were just starting to get to know each other, and then this happens. It's a hard pill to swallow." He was the one that actually went to the Idaho home to collect the belongings of his niece and his sister-in-law, and he said, quote, "Emotionally it was crazy because I felt anger, sorrow, frustration." Peyton's friend Sydney said, quote, "When I lost Peyton, it wasn't just losing a best friend, it was losing part of my family, and it was losing part of myself. I can't get her voice out of my head." Nadia's friend Michelle said, quote, "Not that answers are going to make anything better, but I need to know why. Why did he have to do this? You know, why couldn't he just walk away? Why did these wonderful women have to die?" Cheryl's friend Nancy said, "Mike took my dear friend. You know, I miss Cheryl. I can't call her. I can't see her at a book club, and he took all of that away." Nadia's Facebook is actually still up, and so is Peyton's YouTube channel, and it's so sad to go through that and see how full of life they were and how excited they were at all of the life they had left to live. Nadia's last status on Facebook was from the 4th of June 2017, and it was a survey of 34 questions. One of the questions read, "Last thought before going to bed," to which her answer was, "Life is good." Question 25 asked, "Are you where you want to be in life?" to which she answered, "Yes." In Peyton's last YouTube video, which was posted on the 5th of January 2017, she encouraged everybody to do what makes them happy and not to wait, because you never know what tomorrow will bring.
Put yourself out there, because we have one short life, and no matter what you believe happens afterwards, we have one life, and you need to live it the way you want to, doing whatever you want to do. not what other people want you to do. Live your life the way that it makes you happy. But just listen to me. It's more important to live in the now and live like we're gonna die tomorrow than live like we have 20 years ahead of us, or however many years.
But that is everything for this case. That's all from me today, guys. Please let me know your thoughts on this one. I'm going to be in the comments to chat with you about what you think about this case. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.